Corn School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin. Welcome to the Corn School. In recent years, growers in Ontario really have wrestled with gibberella ear rot in the corn crop and the high levels of DON it can produce. Growers certainly remember the challenges of 2018 as well as the concerns created by 2023 growing conditions. One thing that we have come to understand is the role individual hybrids can play here. Hybrid choices do matter. Some hybrids are just more susceptible to gibberella and DON. But growers now have a new tool to help them with their hybrid choices. The Ontario Corn Committee has just released its first ever DON screening trials report. And to tell us about it, I'm joined by OMAFRA plant pathologist Albert Tenuta and University of Guelph crops researcher Dave Hooker, two of the driving forces behind this report. Hello, gentlemen. Great to have you all on the Corn School.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Hey, Albert, let's kick this off with you. Tell us how this report came together. I know you've had a lot of stakeholders play a role here.
Yeah, after 2018 and the gibberella ear rot and DON issues that caused record yield losses, high DON concentrations, and that we got together and developed through the Ontario Corn Committee a subcommittee that included OMAFRA, Grain Farmers of Ontario, the Ontario Ag Business Association, Certified Crop Advisors, and many of the millers and that as well to combat this issue. And one of the key deliverables around that was around hybrids, and could we provide a risk assessment on different hybrids out there. And hence we were able to. It took a bit of time, but we're here now.
Hey, Dave, before we dig into the report, let's talk about the trials. How did you accumulate the data, and how many hybrids did you test?
Yeah, well, the trial was set up in, as Albert mentioned, in 2019, so the year after the 2018 epidemic. And we've had issues like in almost every year in somewhere in Ontario. So this is where we needed to come together as a collaborative group. And a lot of this work was done previously by my now retired colleague, Dr. Art Shasma. And so he already had a misting system set up and some protocols in place. And so we set out in 2019. So we had, I think, 75 hybrids to start off with in 2019. And they were submitted by companies, seed companies, voluntarily. And they paid a little bit, towards the financing the trials as well. But it varied the number of hybrids varied between 45 and 75 hybrids from 2019 to 2023, just depending on, hybrid turnover and whatnot. But we tried to keep the same hybrids in the trials as many years as possible in order to evaluate the stability of hybrids.
Now, Albert, you all wanted to talk about the disease triangle here, a real key part of this work.
Yeah, so one of the key here is we're talking about the genetic resistance here, but that's one of the three pillars when it comes to the disease triangle. Environment, we know the Great Lakes has a favorable environment for gibberella ear rot and DON, and we see that every year, and as we saw in 2018, and we saw this year in pockets north of London and that as well, if the environment's right, and we can get DON levels. The pathogen's always available, and that the other side is that environment is critically important. And so when it comes to the trials, Dave and I and Art previously, we're looking at ways to control the environmental conditions. So we've got the misting system in there on a regular basis from silking on during that critical period for disease development. And we know that the pathogen is there. We've got inoculations there. Dave has also, we used strip tiller this year, so we have residue there, so a supplementary form of inoculum as well, and hence we can control those, and now we can evaluate the genetic resistance and tolerance.
Hey, Dave, let's jump into the report here. Now, a quick look at the tables would indicate that, lower numbers are better, and hybrid shaded green have lower risk, and red indicates higher risk. But that's just my simple assessment. Let's start here with table 1. What can growers learn here?
Yeah, for table 1, it really shows this multi-year comparison. And so what we wanted to do is to look at hybrids, the same hybrids, over a number of years, and then we can assess or determine stability across years. And so every year, of course, we can't change temperature, but we can change I guess we can evaluate how stable those hybrid responses are across a number of years.
Albert, what do you see in table 1?
Yeah, well, as Dave said, in terms of table 1, we're seeing that stability over years. So every year is a little different environment, different conditions, and having the 2 locations, both at Ridgetown and Huron, is critically important too. We saw that this year, right, Dave, in terms of what happened in growers' fields was also representative in some ways in some of these hybrids of what we saw in our 2 trials, in case that some hybrids showed more disease up in Huron, different environment than what we saw down here. So it's critically important to test these over multiple years, multiple environments, different locations, different planting dates too in these trials as well, right, Dave, to spread that window out. And that's so the really nice thing is, and I think everybody on the committee was quite pleased with the consistency over the locations and over the years this year.
Yeah, and that was the key, that consistency and how this data match up with seed company data, with strip trials on the fields. Like it just validates how important, how consistent, how good the protocols were in these trials. And since we've demonstrated that, I think going forward, that means that we can do this going forward. So 2023 was the first publication year, but I think we can start doing this every year because the trials they just prove themselves.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a critical, important point there that Dave brings. This is not a standalone piece of research or so. This is to support what is going on and all that work that's going on in terms of the seed company development in the background. And that. So again, take all those pieces. This is a great opportunity to have those kitchen table talks with your agronomist or your seed dealer in that, and find out where the best hybrids are for those fields. And remember, different fields may require different hybrids.
Hey, I'm going to put up table 2 here, and Dave, I'll ask you. I mean, I'm seeing specific environments like Ridgetown. What more can we learn from this table?
Yeah, so table 1 was the multi-year data, and so that is the most rich data set that we have, that multi-year data. And table 2 just shows it shows the individual environments that we had within 2023, and it kind of gives an idea, what the variability that we have, what we're looking at in terms of the environment to environment variability. Table 1, we really can't see a lot of that variability from environment to environment but we can see the year-to-year variability. But in table 2, we can show the environment to environment variability, and some hybrids are more variable than others. Some hybrids are consistently low, some hybrids are consistently high, but then there's some hybrids in the middle that we just do not have good evidence yet of whether they're higher or lower down than the untreated check. So this is what we're looking for. It's a risk assessment, and we're looking for evidence that one hybrid is different from the other.
Mm-hmm. Hey, final question to you both, and I'll start with you, Albert. How can growers, and specifically, livestock producers who are growing feed, how can they use this report to make the best hybrid choices?
Yeah, critically important when it comes to those livestock producers. Remember, we are talking about ear infection here. When we're talking about silage and that, now we're talking about the whole plant potential risk for growers. And stalk rots are something else. So if you've got a stalk that's infected with Gibberella or Fusarium, you can get dawn production there, and because you're harvesting the entire plant there, that contributes to your overall dawn level. So again, when it comes to livestock producers, evaluate your risk in terms of ear rot, plan ahead if you've got a high yielding silage hybrid that you want, potential look at fungicides to support that if you see some susceptibility there as well, but also look at the other factors as well in terms of not only yield, but also standability is critically important there, because that risk that you could get from stock rots can contribute to your overall DON and hence your quality, your silage quality as well.
Final point to you, Dave?
Yeah, Albert, I totally agree with that silage, and I think we need to look at some maybe more experiments to look at silage hybrids. But for a hog producer, I would say, these trials, the trials that we're looking at right now, talking about today, they are just with the grain, and they're just one piece of evidence that should be used when making hybrid decisions. And so seed companies, of course, have a whole body of evidence of their own. And this is one piece of evidence, and maybe strip trials and other elevator experiences have other pieces of evidence. And I think we just need to combine all of that information together to make the best hybrid decisions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Have those discussions there. And I guess finally, both Dave and I, the DON Committee, would like to thank the Grain Farmers of Ontario, OMAFRA, University of Guelph, the Ontario Ag Business Association, and all the seed corn companies as well for their support.
Yes.
Well, great work, gentlemen, and I know a lot of people stepping up to make this happen. Well done. We always appreciate you making some time for the Corn School.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Bernie. Good to be here.